Okay, so the focus here is going to be on page 113 and 115. We're going to look at the G major scale because that's going to be part of this. Top of page 112, the scale is written out in the right hand. It gives some information there with the pink boxes. I would suggest take a look at that. That talks about the tetrachord. That's the first tetrachord. And the second, and I talked about this before, that's not really how I teach scales. That's not how I was taught growing up. That's not how I was taught in college and grad school. But apparently it's a thing. So it makes sense to me, but I kind of found it confusing when I first saw it on there. What? But there's a place for that. I don't think it's helpful here, but it's there. The way I like to think of it is you've got the whole step, half, then whole, half. And if you look at the notes, a whole step has one and only one note in the middle. So if we look at the C scale, the half steps are between E and F and B and C. And you can just look and see them. They're the two places where white keys touch. So I think that kind of helps understand, you know, visually where those half steps are. In the key of G major, we have our first half step, which is one of the white group half steps. Our thumb goes under, our hand repositions, and now we can play the rest of the scale. And at the top, the F sharp to G is that half step. So the top of the page shows it going up. Underneath, they show it going up and down in each hand. They do it kind of mirror style, going out from the middle. Key of G major, you've got the F sharp. That F sharp is written on this high F, but it applies to all the Fs. In the bass clef, it's written here, but it's like a code. When you see that, all the Fs are going to be sharp. So I'm just going to play through each of these. I'm going to go kind of slow. You're not going to really get, you know what? I didn't angle this down. Let me angle this down. You're not really going to get a good view there, but when you get this one, you'll be able to see from overhead. So I'm ready to start. At this point, my thumb goes under. They give you the cueing on the page. I have to kind of reach my hand back enough to get to that F sharp. Back down. Cross over when I run out of fingers. And I did the scale up and down. They repeat the top note. Either is fine. I learned them without repeating the top note. So left hand, we start here kind of in the middle. Here's our middle C. And they're starting with this G. You're going to go 1, 2, 3. Your thumb's going to go under. And then you're going to see if you shift your, you know what? I don't think that's going to be in. Yes, it is. Okay. All right, so you go down, you kind of walk those 5 down, walk them back up. When you run out of fingers, cross your 3 over. So that's explained on the page. And these 2 songs I'm going to go over today are in that key. Now, I played through these last time. This time I'm going to go line by line. I'm going to point out what needs the work. In Can on 113, what's going on is they start you in G position. But the music, the fingering on the page, when you follow it, it's going to shift you a little bit away from that position you're used to. So if the fingering wasn't there, you would still need to work out some fingering. And let me just say, when I talk about fingering, I like to mention in books, you generally are given fingering that you're really supposed to follow. Once you learn standard fingerings, there are often options, but we're following this fingering because you need to learn how to shift your hands around. So picking up again at measure 3, you're going to shift over. So this is a case where you're repeating a note and changing the finger. We change a finger that allows us to reach one note higher. I'm in the second line and I'm going to stop there, but I'm overlapping because of how the hand shifts. So let me go through that slowly without talking. That is line 1. You might need to take it half at a time, half a line. Do as much as you can without feeling like it's stressful. If you do a lot and keep forgetting, losing your place, do less and repeat it. Now, as far as how you put that together, let me kind of put this in context. This has this pattern. We've had the left hand patterns before. That's not new. But once you get the right hand learned and put them together, it's something to work out, and when your right hand is shifting, that's probably going to feel more challenging. So what I'd suggest is that you do a little bit of left hand work, maybe line by line, and then when you put it together, try a line. If that's too hard, try a half a line. Let's start here and let's just do the line. Here's where we shift. You might need to slow down like I'm doing. So you might try that, and if it feels kind of okay, you might just keep repeating it. If that feels kind of challenging, then you're going to go back and work on smaller sections. Now, first measure has a whole note. You could start in measure 2. It might feel a little weird at first. And both hands are moving, they're doing different things, but everything moves together. So I think that will fall into place pretty easy. At this point, you have to shift your hand. Most people are going to find that challenging. Now you might just jump right in at that last line. And that sounds funny, but you just repeat. And then little by little you overlap. Okay, so that's how you would work on that. I'm going to start on line 2. We see the fingering marked, thumb goes on A. Now we shift our 2 on the A. We just lift up and shift your hand. And maybe that would be how much you would start with. Shift. Once you have that, you're going to reach all the way up to high G. And that's a G scale. It's an octave, then a scale. So then you would do a little bit on 2 hands. You do that a few times and then do that and add it to the scale. Now, I started talking before about like where to put this, like you're thinking in terms of all your work for the term, all the songs you're doing. This is not going to be a quiz song, but this is going to be preparing you. This and the next one we do today is going to be giving you the last little steps you need to play this. So this has some of the skills, and the next one's really going to give you those high notes. So my suggestion is, if you feel like you've got a lot going on and it's kind of hard, I would suggest you do 2 lines, mostly right hand. Get the right hand worked out, and if you have time, do it slowly with left hand. Don't worry about doing the whole thing, unless you've got the time for that. Line 3 is exactly like line 1. Line 4 is a little different. Line 4, I'll play 2 hands. The beginning is the same as 2. So that ending is not that challenging. But it's a little different. So you have to kind of, when you do your work, you have to kind of assess how many things you have to do. What are the most important ones? This is important, but you can get the skills you need in the first 2 lines. It'd be really good to do hands together, at least somewhat. But don't stress over that. If it's, if you're working on it and you're stuck, then let me know. I'll help you. We are going to flip over and look at 115. 114 is about writing. You can look at that. You can do that. This isn't a theory course, so that's not something that I'm really focused on. If you look at it and you got a question, feel free to ask me. We're going to focus on 115. And we have some information about chords here. They're talking about the primary chords in G major. Primary, there's 3 primary chords in every key. In the key of C, it's C, F, and G. Or G and F. It doesn't really matter how you say them. They're the 3 primary chords, the main chords. In the key of G, it's G, that's the number 1 chord. Then we have the C and the D. We've got a D7. We're using the 7th version, but it's still the primary chord. So if we look at this song, I'm going to play 1 line. If you've got your book, you might want to watch. If not, my left hand is not moving that fast. What's new is in the right hand. I'm going to be changing fingers with every note. Look how I shifted all the way up like that. Back down. Left hand is staccato there, so I'm just going to make them separated. So if we look at just the right hand, we start in our G position. That's a G chord. We change, 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 and change. Every time a note repeats, you can put a different fingering. That's a great way we can get around the piano. Sometimes to get around, we just move our hand if there's times. Sometimes if we repeat a note, we change fingers. And then there's another way to get around too, and that's kind of a smooth kind of connecting. It's not really something we're going to be doing here. But let's say I walked up and needed to go higher. And there was a long note, but I needed to go higher. Maybe I could just change fingers. You can sometimes play a note with 1 finger and switch to another. That's a more advanced technique. So I am going to, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly play without talking the first line. Then I'm going to continue to the second line. There's a repeat sign. I'm not doing it now. There's a DC, so and we see fine. It looks like fine. So if I were to play the entire song like a performance, because there's actually words that go with this. So if I were playing it, I would want to do all the repeats just like it's written, because if somebody's singing, you need all of the music to correspond. We would play the first line, repeat the first line. Second line, which is actually, it's the second line on the page, but it's the third line of the song. And then we go back to the first line, which is the fourth line of the song. So the song has 4 lines. The way it appears on the page is like an abbreviation. It's like in English, we have some words like, instead of cannot, can't, we take part out to make it, I don't know, smoother, quicker, easier once you know it. So it's kind of like a shortcut in writing. So we're going to finish up this song by looking at what's happening in the right hand. It starts on high G. Line 2 is not this G. The G right here in the middle is, that's where we start. That's the G position that we've been working on. But this is higher. The G note sits on top of the staff. The very top line is the F. We've got the F sharp because of the key signature. And right above that, above means to the right, we've got the G. So what happens is for this little section, your hand is going to kind of be up in a different position. Don't forget the F sharp. So I'm playing a small part of that. You might even start with that to get used to playing that F sharp. If we put some left hand support, that's half of the line. The second half, it's a lot the same. Not exactly. It starts the same. Different. But you can definitely hear that's the same. So that's how you want to work on that. Just a little bit at a time. Same thing I said for the other song with this song. This will not be a quiz song. What this is important for is, first of all, just kind of increasing your knowledge, but changing fingers, learning how to get around the piano a little bit more, like a bigger range, how to move smoothly. And this part in line 2 corresponds really nicely with, I'm going to start playing and show you where. Look at the right hand. Exact same notes. So once you've gone over this and worked on this a little bit, that's going to make working on the minuet easier. So that was my plan for today. We are going to maybe do a little bit of Why Am I Blue, Good People. And then I think that is it besides the minuet and the final. So we're in good shape. Maybe what I'll do is I'll play just a little bit of Why Am I Blue. This is going to be a kind of an optional song. It actually gives you one of the skills you need for the final. It gives you the syncopated note. So let's just look at the top of 116 just to listen, not to work on this today. Okay, so that's got syncopated note. If we look at the first right hand 4 notes and then the last one's tied, that G, that's the syncopated note. And we will have that in Jericho in measure 2. They talk more about syncopated notes. That's it. It's a note that kind of is shifted forward rhythmically, and it gives it extra emphasis. And I always like to demonstrate, I think a lot of people know that high note is the syncopated note. That's kind of a famous song. There's lots of arrangements. So, and you know what? I am not 100% sure. They have I think it's maybe in book 2. Here, no, it's here. If anybody likes that song, there is a simple version on 140. This is not something we do. Let's see, what do we have? This is octave higher. So if you like that song, this is a pretty simple version. That's page 140. And I'm going to stop with this. And I think it's still just the 3 of us.